Leyla, it's great to have you on the record. Thanks so much for joining me.
Great to be here.
Okay, walk me through what's happening with Reform UK.
So what's happening with Reform UK is that basically we are giving a voice to what you'd call the silent majority. You've had people in this country who vote one way, vote for a party for particular things, and the party they voted for not only does the complete opposite, but looks down on them for voting the way they did. For instance, you have Brexit. That was a big political mandate. And of course, the political class didn't agree with it. The Labour Party didn't agree with it. And by some regards, a lot of the Conservative Party didn't agree with it. And so through a lack of will, they've tried to frustrate it. And even you hear the Labour Party now talking about how we must rejoin the EU. You're like, what? We voted to leave it. They have no respect for the voter. They feel the voter got it wrong.
Yeah.
Not that they got it wrong. And Reform is the only party that recognises that we are the voice of those people. We do what the people want. We're not going to dictate what the people should do. And we believe that power should go from the people up, not down, not from politicians down, which is what we've seen. And for me, that is fundamentally what it's about. For instance, I was a Conservative councillor, been a Conservative all my life because there was there was nothing else.
There wasn't an alternative.
Well, I'm not a socialist.
Yeah.
And so I would knock on my residents' doors. I'd campaign up and down the country, and I had to agree with our people who were so angry. The Tories promised migration in the tens of thousands. We had the Boris wave, just under 4 million. They're the party of law and order. They shut down a lot of magistrates' court, police numbers, police stations. Not even that. They're the party of low taxation, highest tax burden since World War II.
So do you think that Reform really has grown out of the failure of the Conservatives?
Yeah, some people would say that had the Conservatives not failed, perhaps there was no need for reform. But I think it's more than that. I think that, and you may agree or not, is that I feel that England's been run by globalists, and for me a difference, so there's a patriot and a globalist, and for me a patriot always asks, what's best for Britain? And that's where you take every decision. Whereas I find we've had successive governments who have asked, what makes us look good on the world stage? What's best for global partnerships? And those global partnerships haven't benefited the people that those politicians are elected to serve. And so for me, Nigel is the only true patriot. He's always fought for the ultimate sovereignty of the country. And I think sovereignty matters because that's the only, when you have sovereignty, you have direct electability and direct accountability, which we didn't have with the EU.
Would you say then that Brexit was a success, though?
That's a loaded question because, as I said, so many people in government didn't really believe in Brexit. For instance, Kemi Badenoch was the trade minister and she was meant to, for one of the reasons I voted for Brexit, I don't believe that excessive regulation kills innovation. And I think that when you have excessive regulation, you get monopolies at the top because only big companies can absorb all the excessive cost and time associated with regulation. And then you lose all those innovative startup businesses at the bottom, small businesses, the backbone of any country. And then the government gets to pick the winners or losers. And that's what we saw with the EU. And so I wanted to deregulate. Obviously, you have regulation for safety, but there's so much excessive regulation and she can do it. I wanted sovereignty of our borders and we're still tied to the European Court of Justice. We still can't deport people. And what we've seen is, Europeans have left, but to replace them, we've had mass migration from countries that some of them are not aligned with the values and, some people who come from those countries are not aligned with the values and way of life of this country. So you have seen a massive demographic change in certain parts of the country. And that has caused resentment and anger, actually, because people voted for less migration.
We've just seen the Justice Minister in France signaling that there should be a moratorium on legal migration for 3 years. Do you think we could see that happen in the UK?
I think it's absolutely necessary because since the 90s, mass migration has been used as a substitute for British labour. And it's as a result, it's suppressed wages, it's suppressed skills, it's suppressed technology, and the argument is, we need immigrants to do the jobs that British people can't do because they'll do them at low wages. But then it's a self-perpetuating cycle where you import wages and wages are stagnant as they have been since 2008 because we keep importing cheap wages. So it absolutely has to stop. And listen, people say that migration is necessary for GDP, but people don't experience migration in that way on the ground. They experience it not getting housing, GP appointment, social cohesion, their towns are changing. And And so the economic argument doesn't sell anymore, even if it was valid, which I don't believe it is.
But you're the child of immigrants, right?
100%. You know, my parents came here.
And you're a success.
Yeah.
You're the success story of immigration to the UK.
Yeah. Listen, so of course, so I view immigration as the daughter of immigrants. So I come with great gratitude, but also great realism. You know, when my parents came, they came in the 60s. Immigration was very low in numbers. And I mean, they came wanting to integrate. They came because of Great Britain.
Yeah.
They didn't come to find an Egyptian village. They came because of everything Great Britain represents. And so when immigration is in small numbers, you have to assimilate and integrate. But what we've seen is that when it comes in large numbers and they overtake certain parts, they tend to dominate.
Yes.
And that's what's happened. So we've had mass immigration in such large numbers that integration and cohesion has been impossible to enforce. And we've had a government that hasn't been almost confident enough to say, we're the host nation. You come and you live the way we do, or you don't. And, you know, I mean, in Dubai, where I know you work, you have one type of visa, right? It's a work visa.
Yes.
You come, you're welcome. You want to contribute financially, you know, you want to live by the way we live, more than happy. Once you can no longer support yourself, thank you very much. You know, it's not rude. It's not lack of compassion, but thank you very much. It's time you go back home. Yeah. I think that's how a successful economy opens. Was it Milton Friedman who said, you cannot have open borders and open welfare? No country can afford it.
There's been such a hoopla over the last couple of years about the major amount of UK millionaires, billionaires who've left, and many of them went to Dubai. In your mind, is it a miss that this government doesn't say, you know what, we want those people to come back. Maybe they don't find it safe there anymore. Come back and we'll give you a cut if you do. As in, we will not penalize you for coming home.
That would be a government that understands that without the wealth creators, you don't have wealth. Yeah. Right. And I think every country in the world wants to attract the top wealth creators. We had them. And thanks to the Conservatives, we kicked them out because they abolished the non-dom status. I don't see why this country should tax worldwide income. Yeah. It's not being brought in. It's got nothing to do with us. And what we've seen is the biggest exodus of millionaires. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because people don't, I'm sure people do realize, but the government doesn't articulate it enough, is that if the top taxpayers leave, the bottom taxpayers end up making up the difference and taxes increase, you know.
Do you anticipate that those folks who've left the UK, gone to Dubai, will return? Or do you think they'll stay despite the uncertainty?
So that's why I'm running for mayor. You know, I want to attract them back to London. And I speak to a few of them and well, you know, they say they love Dubai, they love Milan, wherever they are. They all love England. You know, they want to come back. But as I say, we punish risk, we punish success right now. And the sad thing is, Hadley, I think perhaps you don't even get anything for the high taxes. You know, you can't get police, you can't get an NHS doctor. Public school, you know, state schools are not great. Yes. So you're like, what am I paying for? Am I paying for the mass migration, the low wages that are coming that can no longer subsidise themselves? So the British taxpayer has to subsidise their way of life. And people say, oh, you know, reform's all about immigration. Immigration has a huge downstream effect on everything else. Granted, there are other issues, but unless you deal with that first, everything kind of breaks down. Yeah.
Do you anticipate, when you look at what's going to happen over the next few years as a direct result of immigration pressures and the anger that you so rightly mentioned, that we're going to see a major shift in how Londoners vote?
London is an ecosystem within itself. I think Londoners I speak to, the ones who want to vote for reform, want to vote for me, have never voted before because, and rightly so, they feel they vote Labour, they vote Conservative, nothing really changes. It's a kind of a cosy consensus between the two. You've still got, in London, you've got, you know, lack of policing, which happened under both parties. Police stations closed. I mean, now we only have, in a city of 9 million, only 2 counters open 24 hours. We've got 35,000 police officers. I don't see any of them. I don't know if you do. Loads of people don't rely on the police anymore. And that's not just, you know, it's been a build up. But more than that, I speak to 30, 40-year-olds who don't own a home and never will because we don't build enough because, again, regulation, environmental demands, we punish home builders. You know, they have a product that we need and we tell them, oh, you want to build here? Fine. It's going to take you 4 years to get planning permission. I was speaking to someone who was building something in Croydon. It took him 7 years. Who can afford that delay? Unless you're a big, massive company. And so I want to see more houses growing up. Someone who arrived on a boat illegally is granted asylum, eventually granted refugee status, is housed in a Zone 2 flat. And when it comes time for them to have children, they will apply to have their dependents flown in, and the state will provide for them a house in London. They have more housing security than Oliver. And that is the frank truth. And it's not demonizing anyone. It's about prioritizing British people first. For instance, 15 London boroughs are sanctuary boroughs for refugees, Westminster included.
Yeah. Tell me this, and beyond that, with the immigration question, Gulf governments have for decades been warning the UK government about radicalization, about the Muslim Brotherhood specifically. You are the child of Egyptian immigrants. You understand the threat
100%.
of the Muslim Brotherhood. How real is it today in this country?
Oh, it's very real. You know, we have allowed Islamists to thrive because, I don't know, we want to be politically correct. You know, we have the IRGC was marching on our streets a few weeks ago with signs of Ayatollah Khomeini, you know, saying the IRGC is great. You know, these are people that say death to the West, death to Jews on our streets. Yet, and look at that through another lens, when we have people marching with the British flag, Unite the Kingdom, whether you agree with them or not,
they're demonized.
Starmer and Khan put out a video saying they are spreading harm and division. I'm like, but you didn't put out a video when the IRGC were marching. They're not spreading harm and division. And not only that, but for instance, we had a young girl who was murdered by her father. Most heartbreaking story. She was 9 years old, Sarah Sharif. And I never forget the story because the social workers saw that she was veiled at the age of 9. Her hair was covered, whereas the adults in the family weren't. Now, this is not normal. He made her cover her hair to hide bruises. And they never asked why, because they were scared of being called Islamophobic.
Yeah.
People are more scared of being called Islamophobic or not being politically correct than they are of protecting people. And people don't realize that Islamism shows its form in many different guises. It's not just a terrorist attack. And until we have the guts to recognize it, like they do in the Middle East, by the way.
Yes.
I think we're in danger, you know. We're in danger. I mean, and the men arriving on boats, how would you know they're not Muslim Brotherhood? Do you know that a guy who was a convicted bomb maker in Egypt arrived on a boat, claimed asylum, and his asylum was considered, put in a 4-star hotel in Ealing, because the Muslim Brotherhood is not prescribed for 18 months and went on and raped a girl in Hyde Park? I mean, we are considering asylum claims from Muslim Brotherhood convicted bomb makers. For me, it's no longer about immigration, actually, Hadley. It's a national security risk.
Yes, and the UAE has suggested and actually followed through on a move to defund students, Emirati students going to school in the UK simply because they're afraid of radicalization.
Imagine that. Imagine when the UK becomes a hotbed for radicalization for people from the Middle East.
Yeah.
And then if you call this out, I've been called far right, you know, Islamophobic, even though I am Muslim. It's mad. You know, concerns are no longer, they label any concern as illegitimate and they call you a bigot.
Yes.
And I mean, that's one of the reasons people are turning to reform, because we understand how people feel. I understand how people feel, even though I am Muslim. You know, as I said, my parents came here to be British and to embrace Britishness. And I say, listen, if you want to have Sharia courts, if you want to have, you know, if you want to wear a burqa, fine, but it's just not the country for you.
Yes. Tell me this, as a Muslim, I mean, you're a Muslim running for mayor in London, Sadiq Khan, also a Muslim.
Yeah.
When we talk about weaponizing religion, I mean, it seems as if that's something that in the UK, at least, has become the norm. You're weaponizing your religion.
If you criticize him, he says two things. He says, number one, you're Islamophobic. And he says the only reason why Trump criticized him is because he can't stand the idea of a Muslim mayor. Right? I don't care what religion he is. I really don't. If you are getting on with your job, no one, you know, but that's the thing. And when I grew up, you know, one of the times journalists asked me, did you suffer racism when you were growing up because you're Muslim? I said, nobody cared. You know, nobody knew, nobody asked.
Yes.
Because if you're cool, you were cool.
Yes.
And that's the London I want to go back to. I'm not going to wear my religion as a reason to be a victim or anything you tell me, you know, I'm oppressed. But Labour have divided London along religious and ethnic lines. They go to every different group. They go to the Muslims and they say, you know what? This country is Islamophobic. This country that, by the way, has given you everything, is oppressing you. you know, you're hard done by them, and we're the only ones that will defend you.
Yes.
We're the only ones who've got your back. And they think that keeps people highly motivated to vote for them. But that's what causes division. You know, it pits different groups against each other.
Yeah.
And it creates a division within London, whereas I want to create, you know, the number one unifying message is pride in our country, pride in why you came to London.
Yes.
Because it's great.
What is the worrying thing to you in the sort of talking points of Tommy Robinson and others? Because there is an element of racism there. And again, we see these marches where people get up on stage and they vilify Islam, they vilify Muslims. How does that make you feel?
You know, a girl came up to me in a talk and she said, you know, why do they hate us so much? She was a Muslim girl. And I said, listen, you have to understand where they're coming from, right? And I'm a very objective person. If all you see on TV are Muslim terrorists, Pakistani rape gangs, who really say that white girls are trash, Muslim sheikhs, not all, but some of them saying, you know, we want to overtake the country, people saying you can't criticize our religion because of Islamophobia, Sharia courts, you have a government that panders to the Muslim community for votes. You got to ask yourself, what's that like?
Yes.
You know? Muslims like me, people don't know I'm Muslim almost. So I don't wear it, as you say, on my sleeve. So they don't know that there's loads of Muslims like us, but the only Muslims that they see and those that have a louder voice are those that I don't associate with and have a form of Islamism.
So you're not worried about that element?
I understand what's happening, and I feel it. Perhaps that's why I feel I speak so much about it, because I want to reverse that idea. But I don't blame them for feeling that way.
Yeah.
You know, I really don't. In fact, once I was in Florida, and a guy was driving his truck. I'm sorry, not his truck. It's like, anyway, some kind of thing. And we were looking around, like, are there a lot of bugs here? And he literally said, oh, you don't have to worry about the bugs. You got to worry about the Muslims. They're the ones that are going to kill you. And I thought to myself, all this man sees, you know, he's in a predominantly area where there are no Muslims. It's what he sees on TV.
Yes.
And I can't blame him. You know, sadly, there are very maligned Muslim groups and communities that are radical Muslims, radical Islamists, and they would not be allowed to flourish in the Middle East. That's what people don't understand.
Yes. What are the legal mechanisms in this country to put pressure on them?
What do you mean?
In the sense that, obviously, you're a lawyer, you know this. How do you, if they're refusing to integrate, how do you develop your society?
So number one thing, I think we have to have a strong message that this is Great Britain. You know, and it sounds petty, but you don't see the British flag anywhere.
No.
You know, somehow the British flag has been weaponized again, you know, as a symbol of division by Labour. I want to see the British flag. There has to be a united message that we are all here because of Great Britain. They didn't pick to go to any other country. And I do think, and this is Reform's policy, foreigners should not have access to welfare. The British taxpayer should not be paying for foreigners to live in the country when, you know, for instance, I know a lady whose son is 400th on the list for social housing. She's British, yet her neighbour, someone who's just arrived, has a 3-bedroom flat, doesn't speak English, has no interest in ever speaking English or integrating. That's fundamentally wrong. Whereas we also have veterans who fought for this country, but are put at the bottom of the housing list because they're white single men sleeping rough.
Yeah.
What country are we? And people say, because, just to your viewers, so in huge demographic change and social cohesion has completely fractured.
Yes.
And so that's got to stop. British people for British social housing, for British welfare, and it's as simple as that.
In your mind, how do the events currently happening in the region, in the Middle East, impact the United Kingdom? Because what we've seen essentially from this government is absolutely no help whatsoever for Gulf countries. They've basically been left on their own, despite the fact that they are some of the biggest investors in the UK, Qatar, UAE,
they probably have more
Saudi
money and
Arabia.
capability than we do, though.
Well, there you go. That's another problem. I mean, it's the United Kingdom. Just we talk about this with relation to Europe and Putin, and now in the region. I mean, where is the UK? I mean, are they even a defensive power anymore?
I mean that's a good question. But to be real, we do not have the military, energy, or economic capability to help anyone. You know, we can barely help ourselves. You know, and we don't realize, right now, what we've seen from Iran is that energy is being used as an economic weapon.
Yes.
Right? And those...
Much like Putin did a few years ago.
Yeah, but those that don't have their own supply and rely on it are the most to suffer. And we don't even have storage. I mean, we have very minimal storage. So we don't even have a runway should it stop. And yet they're still going even harder and faster on net zero. I mean, madness. But also, we haven't invested in defense, stupidly. Because we've had governments that don't treat national security as a priority. How can you have a government that treats national security when you're allowing men to arrive on boats with no documents, putting them in towns and villages when you have no idea who they are? If I was part of the Muslim Brotherhood, IRGC or the Taliban, of course I'm not going to get a visa. I just hop it to France, get on a boat, arrive and say the word asylum. And I'm like, oh my God, welcome. Let me put you in a 4-star hotel in a small town and village.
Yes.
And roam free. And granted, not all of them will be rapists or terrorists, but we don't have an effective filtering system to know who is and who isn't.
Yes.
And that unknown of not knowing who they are is a massive danger. And any government that's serious about keeping people safe would take that unknown into account and house them in an area where they can't roam free. And, you know, give us information on your smuggling gang. Who sent you here? Show us the name. Show us your text messages. No, we get none of that.
Yes.
And so that is also national security. We've had governments who've just treated national security as not a priority, sadly.
Yes.
We're no longer in the game.
How long can this country go on in this way? I mean, at this point, you know, it's a question of money. It's a question of the bond markets. It's a question of whether or not the Labour government has, you know, something to pull out of the hat. And seemingly they can't even get their act together when it comes to the leadership question, let alone anything else. How long in your mind does this country have before we're going to have a serious crash?
You know, it's sad to discuss this because it is for me, it's the greatest country in the world. We have the best universities, you know, history, can do, you know. It is a land of keep calm and carry on, which means incredible resilience, you know, incredible pragmatism. But sadly, we have governments that haven't believed in Britain. You know, they've believed in global partnerships. They haven't believed in the ability and capability of Britain. And as a result, they haven't believed that growth comes from the grafters, the business owners, the employees. And, you know, they've undercut them. They've undercut the working class. And so until we start believing in Britain and until the government says, you know what, growth is the number one priority, and it's not just a slogan, and growth doesn't come from like cash injections from the government, unless they recognize that they need to get out the way and let people actually succeed and let some people fail, let others succeed. What I hope is that, you know, they don't trust the people.
Yeah.
Everything comes from the people and their ability. And the British people have proven time and time again over hundreds of years that they are the best. You know, a tiny island has achieved so much. And it's sad that we're being let down by our governments. You know, I mean, Churchill would have called it appeasement in a way.
Yeah. What about when you think about the party itself as Reform? So are you optimistic about Reform's chances in the next election?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure that Nigel Farage will be the next prime minister. You know, we smashed it in the local elections, and we're a startup. You know, we smashed it without having. We won over 1,500 council seats. The Tories lost about 700. You know, Labour lost untold amounts as well. And don't forget, they've been around for 100 years and more. We've been around for barely any. We didn't have any of the historical data, infrastructure.
Right.
But what we had is a leader that believes in Britain. And I think that is a very resonating, and you know, like or loathe Donald Trump, I think that is also the message he has.
Yes.
You know, believe in America.
Yes.
And I think that's Nigel's. We'll have different methods, of course, because Nigel's his own leader. But for me, people recognize he brings receipts. Really, he didn't just jump on the bandwagon of Britain. Whatever we do, he's been fighting it for 30 years, and he's, you know, everyone's come at him.
What do you deal with when you think you're talking to voters and they essentially say Reform doesn't have an economic plan? What is the economic plan that, you know, differs from the Conservatives from Labour?
So I think, as I said, the economic Conservatives believed in regulation and they believed in high taxation. And I think the fundamental view of Reform is when it's right to not keep, I think you have to let people keep more of their money. It's all about incentives.
Yeah.
And if there's no incentive to make more money, people won't make more money.
Yes.
And so that is, we are a free market, low tax, low regulation party.
What about benefits?
That's when we thrived.
Yeah.
Under Thatcher, that's when we thrived.
Do we cut benefits? Is that just a necessary part of this? I mean, we saw Rachel Reeves, in tears, trying to get that done and incapable of doing so because of her own party.
The great thing about Great Britain is that we will give you the tools to succeed, but should you not succeed and you need help, we are there for you. And benefits, welfare should be a temporary measure. It shouldn't be a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And right now it is a lifestyle. And sadly, we are writing a generation of workers off for anxiety. My sister passed away 3 years ago, and I could have easily removed myself from life and very close to my sister. Worst time of my life. My father died 20 years earlier, got a divorce 10 years then. All these things, I could have really just got into a shell. But if I had access to welfare and they said, would stay off welfare, I would have been stuck in a rut. It would have been very difficult to come out of it.
Yes.
It's very difficult once you are on welfare to find the courage to stop and go out and find work. And I think we need to encourage people not to immediately seek refuge under welfare, but to get jobs and perhaps not give welfare for certain things.
So a massive reform of welfare in this country.
I think the criteria for where you are allowed welfare,
One of the areas that this government and the Conservatives as well put a lot of time and effort into was this sort of Oxbridge corridor, and they're talking about the big AI companies are coming here and putting in even more investment in. But at the end of the day, that creates high-level jobs, but only for a specific person, right? That's not for the massive amount of young unemployed people in this country.
Yeah.
Where are they going to find employment? Especially, as you say, if they've been conditioned to think that the state will take care of them.
You can't blame them, because wages have been stagnant since 2008, right? And people, just in London, prices have gone up, energy costs, rent, taxes, but wages have been stagnant. So people are working harder and harder and getting poorer and
getting
poorer.
less.
So that, I've done my best. F it, I'm going to sit back and relax and let the government do it if they are.
Yes. So it was no surprise to you when people took off in mass numbers for Dubai?
No.
Yeah.
No, of course not, because and good luck to them, because you need to make your life the way it is, and if you have a country that's not rewarding what you're doing, we can no longer afford to punish workers and reward idleness.
Yeah. Do you see the
Because, by the way, the tax pool shrinks then as well.
Exactly.
That's the bad thing.
Yeah.
Is that there's more people on welfare. The tax pool is shrinking and the welfare pool is growing. Who's going to pay for that?
Where's the money coming from? Yeah. Tell me this. Do you anticipate that we could potentially see a reform Conservative ticket simply as a result of people who maybe are late to the party?
No. I've campaigned up and down the country, and there is a real, not hatred, there is a real sense of betrayal from the Conservatives.
Yeah.
And our unique selling point is that we are not them. We didn't do that. We're not Labour and Conservatives who do have a cosy consensus. We are here to break that up. As I said, we're here to remove power from the top and give it back to the people. And a lot of our voters, a lot of our supporters do not want to see an alliance with the Conservatives, especially as it is now. And yeah, as of now, I don't see the need for it. They're never polling more than 20%. We're polling at 27 to 30. And there's a lot of shy reformers. There's a lot of people who won't say they're reform. And so I think it's an even bigger margin for us.
Yes. Much like most people in America didn't want to admit that they were voting for Donald Trump. And then overwhelmingly they did. Twice.
Exactly. And I speak to people who are like, I've always voted Conservative. I'm going to vote. You're trying to break a habit. And I admire that. There's a loyalty to it. I've always voted Conservative. My dad did, or always voted Labour. And so you have to give them a reason to want to leave it. Yeah. And I think those people that cling on to the Conservatives perhaps haven't faced the repercussions of their failed policies. Yes. They have become the party of the rich southeast. They won in rich suburbs in Westminster, Wandsworth. Yeah. and they no longer represent the whole country.
We only have an end to non-dom as a result of Rishi Sunak's wife and the party feeling they had to do more.
100, and they wanted to beat the Labour Party because they knew they were going to do it.
Yes.
It was a political decision that they knew
Yes.
would be economically damaging to the country. And that, you hit the nail on the head, Hadley, is that's what I felt the Conservative Party and Labour do. You see it with this by-election. They're fighting to preserve the party. We're fighting for the country. Like, all of us in Reform have taken a hit. You know, when I defected, I was told I was racist, divisive. You know, you're kind of looked down on when you're a member of Reform. We don't care because we're fighting for the country. We're not fighting for the survival of a party.
Yes.
It's a very different way of doing politics.
Do you think, I mean, if you take a step back and you look at what's happening in Labour right now, Keir Starmer, perhaps not long for this world, who's better for reform as a leader of Labour? Is it Andy Burnham? Is it Ed Miliband?
Oof. It depends. I mean, I love the country so much that I wouldn't want who's best for us to take over because they'd be so disastrous for the country. But we believe in growth. We're going to put a cash injection here, cash injection there. They don't. As I said, none of them have ever built a business. None of them have ever actually worked outside of like the public sector or some kind of think tank. So they don't believe in growth.
Yeah. Do you think that this country has to crash before there'll be a true political realignment?
No, I mean, I don't. I think there already is a realignment. You know, you never had a third party polling as we did. And I hope really that this country doesn't crash for so many reasons because I love it so much. And I think there is already a realignment. And I think I think people are recognizing that, you know what, even if some people are not 100% behind us, like you said, they're not sure about certain things, but they're like, you know what, I'm going to give them a chance. And I'll give them a vote once. How much worse can it be? I've tried both. And what I always tell people is I knock on doors and people are like, you know what, I hate the state of the country. But I'm still going to vote Conservative. I'm still going to vote Labour. And I'm like, if you always vote the same, what changes?
Yeah.
And they're like, you know what, you're right. I'll give them a chance. So, and once we're in government, we're not here to like tinker around the edges and cling on to failure for 20 years. You know, we're here to make radical change.
Yeah. Are you going to bring the billionaires back?
Oh, 100% with the Britannia card. We believe in wealth creation. You know, we believe in the wealth creators. If you don't have wealth creators, you don't have wealth in the country, and that's what you've seen. You know, we're number 20 for IPOs in the world. Imagine that. I speak to so many businesses that are listing on NASDAQ or they're not listing here.
Yeah.
And they're British companies. That's a failure of government. This is money, taxes, jobs, reputation, everything going abroad.
Yeah. Tell me, in your mind, when you think about reform, they're labeled as far right. What is wrong in that argument?
So fundamentally now, if you believe in borders, if you believe in, if you wave a British flag, if you believe that British people should be prioritised by your own government, if you believe that illegal migrants should be prosecuted, and if you believe that Britain is the best country in the world, above all else, and there's nothing to be ashamed of
In saying
that, or there's nothing, we shouldn't be ashamed of our history. That is sadly deemed far right now. And so, I mean, if I've been called far right, I've been called loads of things. Frankly, I call it being a patriot.
Yeah. Layla, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining me on The Record.
Thank you very much.